Everyone dreams of a chill summer job, a way to soak up some sun and earn a little cash between semesters. But my orientation at Solstice Shores water park, a sprawling sun-scorched, vaguely dilapidated oasis on the dusty, forgotten edge of nowhere in West Texas, ended not with a staff t-shirt, but with a small, surprisingly clean laminated card of a rules so bizarre, so utterly disconnected from any logical park operation. They made the park's perpetually, almost supernaturally clear water feel less like an invitation and more like a shimmering, patient threat. I'm Mason Reyes, 19, a broke college freshman majoring in undecided and minoring in overdue bills. Just trying to earn enough tuition to make it to sophomore year. The head lifeguard, a golden boy named Skyler Quinn, whose tan was as flawless as his unnervingly serene smile, handed me the list with an air of breezy nonchalance, warning me, with an almost imperceptible flicker in those calm blue eyes, to always calm blue eyes. Keep exactly 47 faded yellow pool noodles, neatly stacked in the main storage room. Never 46, he'd emphasized with a soft chuckle. Never 48. Because as he put it with a wink that didn't quite reach his eyes, the inventory spirits get a little restless. And nobody wants that. It sounded like a bizarre heat-stroke-induced prank. The kind of hazing you'd expect at a place that looked like it hadn't been updated since the Carter administration. Right up until little Timmy from the Dippin' Dots stand. All of 16, and the Dippin' Dots stand. Twice as gullible. Apparently forgot to count them correctly. One sweltering, cicada-loud afternoon. Later that same day, Timmy swore, his face ashen and his hands shaking, that the wave pool had started whispering his mom's long-hidden gambling debts right before he nearly drowned in water that had suddenly, inexplicably, felt as thick and fresh, suffocating his poured glass. My decision to work at Solstice Shores had been born of equal parts desperation and a naive sort of Texan romanticism. The online ad promised fun in the sun and a decent hourly wage. The reality, as I drove my sputtering '98 Civic down the long, heat-shimmering county road, the landscape growing increasingly barren and isolated, was somewhat less glamorous. The park itself was an aging behemoth of faded fiberglass slides, cracked concrete patios, and that unnervingly clear, almost sterile-looking water in every pool. The air always carried a potent cocktail of chlorine, cheap coconut sunscreen, hot, dusty asphalt, and a faint, almost imperceptible brackish undertone. A subtle reminder of the deep, ancient aquifers that supposedly fed this unlikely oasis. Skyler Quinn, my new boss, was the living embodiment of a California surfer dude, inexplicably transplanted to the West Texas scrubland. 22. Sun-bleached blonde hair. A physique that suggested he spent more time lifting weights than pool noodles, and that ever-present easygoing smile that seemed to charm everyone except, increasingly, me. He gave me the whirlwind tour, the Lazy Llama River, the Cobra's Coil Slide, currently closed for unscheduled maintenance, its entrance roped off with faded caution tape, the sprawling tidal terror wave pool, and at the very heart of the feed park, the oldest and deepest pool, simply known as the Deep Eddy. It was a perfectly circular, almost unnaturally still body of water, its clarity so profound it looked less like water and more like a solid block of blue-green glass, reflecting the scorching Texas sky with a disturbing mirror-like perfection. The water in the Deep Eddy, Skyler mentioned with that same breezy nonchalance, always felt a few degrees colder than anywhere else in the park. Keeps you alert, he'd said, with another of those smiles that didn't quite crinkle the corners of his eyes. The rules were delivered along with my faded staff polo shirt, a violent shade of turquoise, and a whistle I was pretty sure hadn't been sanitized since the park opened in the 70s. Solstice Shores. Operational harmony protocols. Always keep exactly 47 yellow pool noodles in the main storage room. Unit B, count them at the beginning and end of each shift. Never 46, never 48. Precision is paramount. If any park guest, child or adult, asks you the question, why is the water wet? Exactly 7 times in succession, you must respond with the exact phrase. Isn't dryness just water's dream? Make eye contact. Do not deviate. If the water in any pool or attraction suddenly turns transparent as flawless glass, be aware that someone nearby, guest or staff, has just inadvertently revealed, vocally or mentally, their deepest, most guarded secret. You have exactly 60 seconds from the moment you notice the clarity to actively and completely forget what you may have seen, heard, or intuited. Failure to do so will result in that secret becoming inextricably yours. I remember staring at the card, then up at Skyler's smiling face. Is this for real? Like a team-building thing? Some kind of running gag? Skyler just shrugged, that easy smile unwavering. Just how things are done here at Solstice, Mason. Keeps the operational flow smooth. Good luck charm, you know. His eyes, however, held a fleeting shadow, a momentary dimming of their bright blue, that suggested something far removed from good luck. My fellow summer hires were a mixed bag. There was Jonah Joe Carter, a lanky, perpetually grinning guy of about 21, already festooned with more conspiracy theory band patches than actual Lifeguard certifications. He immediately appointed himself my Solstice survival buddy. And then there was Cassie Tran, a sharp-tongued, hawk-eyed 20-year-old running the perpetually greasy snack tsunami concession stand. She'd given me a long, appraising look when Skyler introduced us. A look that seemed to say, another one. Let's see how long this one lasts. The overall park manager, a stern, perpetually stressed woman named Delaney Moore, maybe mid-30s, with eyes like chips of flint, and her dark hair, always scraped back into a severe bun, had overseen our initial safety briefing with a clipped, impassioned efficiency, pointedly shutting down Joe's attempts to ask about any weird local stories, or what really happened during that filtration crisis back in 9. The main storage room, Unit B, where the sacred 47 yellow pool noodles resided, was a damp, windowless concrete bunker tucked away behind the wave pool's pump house. It always smelled faintly of stagnant pond water, mildew, and something else, something vaguely sorrowful. The noodles themselves were faded, some slightly chewed at the ends, as if by nervous, unseen rodents. Later that first afternoon, as I was dutifully, skeptically, counting the noodles for the end of shift log, Joe ambled in. Dude, this place is a gold mine for my paranormal podcast. 47 noodles? What's up with that? Is it like the number of souls trapped in the filter system? He'd grabbed a handful, tossing them around, then haphazardly stuffed them back onto the rack. Pretty sure that's 47. Or, 40-something. After he left, a prickle of unease, despite myself, made me recount. 46. One was missing from the main rack, half hidden under a pile of deflated alligator floats. As I was about to retrieve it, a sudden, inexplicable power surge made all the lights in the storage room, and seemingly the entire park beyond, flicker violently for a good 10 seconds. A low, guttural, gurgling sound like a giant stomach rumbling emanated from the direction of the deep eddy's main drain. Then the lights steadied. Skyler Quinn appeared in the doorway, his familiar serene smile in place. Everything all right in here, Mason? Heard the power converter's hiccup. He glanced at the noodle rack. Ah, looks like one of our slippery friends tried to make a break for it. He calmly reached under the tarp, plucked out the missing 46th noodle, which was actually the 47th, confirming my count, and neatly placed it back on the rack. All good. 47. Perfect. His smile at me This time was a little too long, a little too knowing, and the gurgling from the deep eddy abruptly stopped. The first week at Solstice Shores settled into a routine of sun-drenched monotony, punctuated by moments of creeping, inexplicable dread. The Texas heat was a relentless hammer, the chlorine, a constant sting in my eyes, and the unnervingly clear water of the pools a silent, watchful presence. Joe Carter, my Solstice survival buddy, became increasingly eccentric. He was convinced the park was a hotbed of supernatural activity, a theory fueled by the bizarre rules and Skyler's serene, almost cult-like adherence to them. He started carrying his phone everywhere, not for TikToks, but to make EVC, electronic voice phenomena recordings. He'd hold it near the pool drains, the filter intakes, the eternally damp walls of the noodle storage room, muttering about capturing the whispers of the water. Dude, I swear he'd confide in me, his eyes wide with a mixture of excitement and genuine fear. The water here, it talks. When I'm skimming the lazy river, sometimes I hear my name, clear as day, like someone's right under the surface courting me. Cassie Tran from the snack tsunami watched Joe's escalating obsession with a worried frown. One afternoon, as Joe was excitedly trying to get a clean audio sample from the gurgling intake vent of the kiddie pool's geyser gulch, Cassie pulled me aside, wiping grease from her hands onto her turquoise polo. "Carl, that new friend of yours, Mason," she said, her voice low, her sharp eyes darting around. "He reminds me of Darren P., a kid who worked here 2 summers ago. Sweet guy. Got real friendly with the park's filter system." Started saying it was telling him secrets. Then one day, he just wasn't here anymore. Delaney said he quit, moved back to Oklahoma, but his car was still in the employee lot for a week. She gave me a hard look. "Some things in this park are best left unheard." The second rule manifested during a particularly brutal heat wave. I was assigned to a lifeguard chair overlooking the splash pad, a chaotic zone of shrieking toddlers and spraying fountains. A small, unnervingly pale child, no older than 6, with wide, vacant blue eyes and unnaturally dark circles beneath them, detached herself from a group and approached my chair. "Mister," she said, her voice a flat, toneless whisper. "Why is the water wet?" I blinked, momentarily taken aback. Because it's water, kiddo." She just stared, her head tilted slightly. "Why is the water wet?" she repeated, her voice unchanged. This went on 5 times, 6 times. Each time, her vacant gaze seemed to penetrate a little deeper, the air around us growing colder despite the scorching sun. A chill, unrelated to any breeze, snaked down my spine. I remembered the rule. 7 times. She was on her 6th. "Why is the water wet?" she asked for the 7th time, her whispery voice now carrying an almost expectant quality. My mouth was dry. My heart hammered against my ribs. I forced myself to meet her unnervingly empty gaze. "Isn't dryness," I recited, the words feeling alien and absurd on my tongue. "Just water's dream?" The child's lips, which had been pale and bloodless, curved upwards in a slow, deliberate, unnervingly adult smile. It was a smile of profound, ancient understanding. She nodded once, then simply turned and walked away, not towards her parents, but towards the park's main exit. And as she walked, her small figure seemed to shimmer, to blur at the edges, before dissolving entirely into the shimmering heat haze rising from the concrete, like a mirage retracting itself. The water in the splash pad near where she had stood, the jets that had been arcing playfully, suddenly sputtered, and for a horrifying instant, their streams flowed backwards, sucking down into the drains with a wet, hungry sound before resuming their normal, cheerful spray. Later, I tried to ask Skyler about the incident, about the bizarre rules. He was his usual serene self, calmly applying zinc oxide to his perfectly tanned nose. Some things at Solstice Shores are just part of the ecosystem, Mason, he'd said, his blue eyes reflecting the unnaturally clear water of the deep eddy behind him. Older than the pipes, older than the concrete. You respect the flow. You don't ask too many questions, and everyone stays refreshed. He then mentioned something about the park's big clarity event back in 9, his voice dropping almost imperceptibly. That was a bad summer for secrets, Mason. A real bad summer. Taught us all a lot about respecting the local currents. He offered no further explanation, just that serene, unreadable smile. That night, Joe, flushed with excitement, played me one of his latest water recordings from the deep eddy's main filter intake. He'd been trying to capture a low-frequency hum he swore heard, beneath the expected mechanical drone of the pumps and the distant muffled shouts of park guests. There was something else, faint, sibilant, almost inaudible, a whisper, chillingly, unmistakably. It sounded like Joe's own name, Jonah. Jonah. Followed by a soft, drawn-out, distinctly feminine giggle that seemed to bubble up from a place very deep and very cold. Joe, however, couldn't hear it. He just heard the hum. Joe Carter's obsession with the whispers of the water intensified. He started neglecting his actual duties, spending hours hunched over pool drains, his phone pressed to the grates, his brow furrowed in concentration. His conspiracy theories, once amusingly outlandish, became darker, more fragmented. He started talking about the water knowing things, about it showing him pictures in the ripples. He looked pale, his eyes ringed with dark circles, his usual manic energy replaced by a twitchy, haunted paranoia. Cassie Tran watched him with a mixture of pity and something that looked like fear. Then came the afternoon of the glass pool. It was another scorching Texas day. The sun a merciless white disk in a cloudless sky. Mason and Joe were assigned to skim leaves and debris from the deep eddy, the park's ancient, unnervingly still heart. Joe was muttering to himself, occasionally dipping his phone into the water, trying to get a submerged recording. Mason was trying to ignore him, focusing on the rhythmic sweep of his long-handled net. Suddenly, Joe gasped, a choked, strangled sound. He dropped his skimmer and stumbled back from the edge of the pool, his eyes wide with a terror that was shocking in its intensity. Mason, look! The water. I followed his shaking, pointed finger, and my own breath caught in my throat. The water in the entire deep eddy, all several 100,000 gallons of it, had changed. It wasn't just clear anymore. It was transparent, utterly, impossibly transparent, like a colossal, precisely carved block of flawless, blue-tinted glass. Every pebble on the pool floor, every tiny crack in the submerged concrete, every forgotten, algae-stained penny, was visible with an unnatural, preternatural, crystalline clarity. It was beautiful, in a terrifying, deeply wrong kind of way. Yo stared into its depths, mesmerized, his face a mask of horrified awe. I see it, he whispered, his voice a raw, broken croak. Oh God, Mason. I see everything, all of it. He clutched his head, his body beginning to tremble, his eyes reflecting the impossible clarity of the water, but now filled with a dawning, soul-shattering understanding. Rule of 3 slammed into my mind with the force of a physical blow. If the water in any pool or attraction suddenly turns transparent as flawless glass, be aware that someone nearby, guest or staff, has just inadvertently revealed, vocally or mentally, their deepest, most guarded secret. You have exactly 60 seconds from the moment you notice the clarity to actively and completely forget what you may have seen, heard, or intuited. Failure to do so will result in that secret becoming inextricably yours. Joe was seeing something, knowing something. His deepest secret, Or perhaps the parks. Or perhaps something far worse was being laid bare, reflected in that terrible crystalline water. "Joe, look away!" I yelled, grabbing his arm, trying to pull him back from the edge. "Don't look at it! You have to forget it." But he was lost, his gaze locked on the impossible depths, his face contorting with a mixture of terror and dawning, horrified revelation. The 60 seconds I knew with a sickening certainty were ticking by. The water remained glass-like, a silent, accusing mirror. Then, as abruptly as it had happened, the clarity began to recede. The crystalline transparency clouded, softened, returned to its usual, merely unnerving, preternatural clearness. Yo collapsed onto the hot concrete, shuddering violently, his breath coming in ragged, gasping sobs. He looked up at me, his eyes no longer just haunted, but filled with a new, terrible borrowed knowledge, a weight that seemed to crush him. "The deals," he began to mutter, his voice hoarse, almost unrecognizable. "The deals made in the dark, under the water. The price of clarity. Oh God, the things it showed me, the things they did." He trailed off, his gaze unfocused, staring at something far beyond the confines of Solstice Shores. Later that day, a thoroughly shaken and visibly deteriorating Joe cornered Cassie Tran at the snack tsunami, babbling incoherently about what had seen in the glass pool, about whispering contracts and drowned reflections. Cassie listened, her usually sharp features growing paler and paler with each of Joe's fragmented revelations. When he finally stumbled away, clutching his head, Cassie grabbed my arm, her grip surprisingly strong, her eyes wide with a fear that mirrored my own. "He saw too much, Mason," she hissed, her voice low and urgent. "In the ante, when the water goes like that, it doesn't just show you the truth or someone's secret, it implants it. It makes it a part of you. He's marked now, contaminated." Before she could say more, Delaney Moore, the park manager, materialized beside us, her face a thundercloud, her eyes like chips of ice. "Miss Tran," Delaney said, her voice dangerously soft, "your break was over 10 minutes ago. Perhaps you should focus on your assigned station and refrain from upsetting the other staff with unsubstantiated local folklore." Her gaze flicked to me, cold and dismissive, before she turned and strode away. Cassie didn't show up for her evening shift, cleaning the concession stands. The next morning, a curt memo was posted in the staff room. "Cassandra Tran has elected to pursue other opportunities and has transferred to an affiliated park franchise in North Dakota, effective immediately. We wish her well." Her locker was cleaned out, utterly bare, except for one single, faded, water-stained yellow pool noodle, tucked away in the back corner. If it had been in the main storage room, Unit B, it would have been number 48, and crammed inside one of its hollow ends, I found a hastily scrawled, almost illegible note on a ripped piece of napkin. "Mason, he's not saving anyone. The lifeguard's chair isn't for rescues. It's for watching the sacrifices. Don't be next." The water remembers his secret most of all. Watch the noodles. They change. That night, when I did my compulsive, dread-filled count in the damp, echoing storage room, there were exactly 47 yellow pool noodles. But one of them, one I hadn't noticed before, felt different, heavier than the others, colder. And when I squeezed it, my fingers searching for some hidden mechanism, some trick, a thin trickle of what looked and smelled like salt water, not chlorinated pool water, seeped out, carrying the faint, almost imperceptible scent of fear, and cheap coconut sunscreen, the kind Cassie always wore. Yokarta didn't make it through the week. His descent was rapid, terrifying. The borrowed knowledge from the glass pool seemed to be eating him from the inside out. He'd wandered the park muttering about reflections that lied and secrets that drowned, his eyes holding a permanent, haunted stare. He stopped eating, He barely slept. The whispers from the water, he claimed, were constant now, calling his name, telling him it was time to join the chorus. His end came during a crowded, chaotic late-afternoon swim session at the deep eddy. One moment he was listlessly skimming leaves near the edge, his movements slow, disconnected. The next, he was gone when the lifeguards finally pulled him from the bottom of the 13-foot pool. His eyes were wide open, frozen in a rictus of ultimate, horrified understanding. The official cause of death, dutifully reported by a stone-faced Delaney Moore, was accidental drowning. But I'd seen him just minutes before. He'd been in shallow water, perfectly fine, just staring into the unnervingly clear depths with that new, terrible knowledge burning in his eyes. And as they laid his lifeless body on the hot concrete, the water that sluiced from his soaked clothes, for a brief, horrifying instant before it was absorbed by the thirsty ground, was as transparent as flawless glass around him. And then it happened to me. Standing there amidst the screaming patrons and the frantic efforts of the paramedics, a sudden, overwhelming wave of understanding washed over me. A vivid, visceral, unwanted download of information. Yo Carter's deepest, most shameful secret. A cruel, petty act of childhood betrayal, involving his younger brother and a stolen, irreplaceable family heirloom. A secret that had gnawed at his conscience for over a decade. It wasn't a memory I was recalling. It was a memory I was experiencing, as if it were my own. The guilt, the shame, the fear of discovery. It was all there, sickeningly, intimately mine. Rule 3, 60 seconds. I had to forget it. Now, I squeezed my eyes shut, desperately focusing on the wail of the approaching ambulance sirens, the acrid smell of chlorine, the feel of the hot concrete beneath my shoes. Anything to push out Joe's drowning memory before it took root in my own psyche. It was like trying to hold back a tsunami with a teacup. The memory fought, clung, tried to sear itself into my brain, slowly, agonizingly, as the seconds ticked by with horrifying speed. It began to recede, leaving me shaken, nauseous, and chilled to the bone despite the blistering Texas heat. The water in the deep eddy was back to its usual, merely unsettling, clarity. In the aftermath of Joe's accident and Cassie Tran's abrupt transfer, Skyler Quinn's behavior towards me shifted. His usual breezy friendliness became more focused, more solicitous. He started seeking me out, mentoring me, sharing lifeguard wisdom that often veered into cryptic pronouncements about respecting the park's unique currents and understanding the deep eddy's moods. He praised my quick learning and natural affinity for the water, always with that serene, unreadable smile that now sent shivers down my spine. He subtly began to isolate me from the few remaining, mostly oblivious, summer staff, assigning me to solitary tasks, often near the deep eddy or in the accursed noodle storage room. Delaney Moore, I noticed, watched these interactions with a hawk-like, almost predatory intensity, her face a stony mask. The nightly ritual of counting the 47 yellow pool noodles in the damp, echoing silence of Unit B became an exercise in pure dread. The room itself felt alive now. The whispers were more frequent, more insistent, fragments of countless voices intertwining, lamenting, accusing. He never truly loved you, you know. I was the one who stole the money from the till. It was my fault. She ran into the road. Echo as of 1,000 forgotten confessions. A library of despair. The noodles themselves seemed to pulse with a faint internal energy. Some felt colder than others, some unnaturally heavy. One night, I could have sworn one of them sighed as I picked it up, driven by a gnawing fear and Cassie's last cryptic warning. The water remembers his secret most of all. I started digging the local library's dusty, neglected archives, the town's historical society, online forums dedicated to Texas ghost stories, and forgotten local legends. I found more than I bargained for. Old newspaper clippings, yellowed and brittle, detailing a string of unexplained incidents and tragic accidents at Solstice Shores stretching back decades. Sudden, inexplicable disappearances of both guests and staff. People suffering acute psychological breaks after spending too much time near the deep eddy. A few unsolved drownings in perfectly calm, shallow water. The park, it seemed, had a voracious appetite. And then I found it. An article from the summer of '29, tucked away in a microfiche archive. Tragedy at Solstice Shores. Popular Lifeguard sole survivor of after-hours incident. It detailed how a group of young off-duty lifeguards had gone for a late-night swim in the deep eddy. Only one had been found the next morning, wandering near the park entrance in a daze, suffering from hypothermia and acute amnesia, with no memory of what had happened to his friends. He just kept repeating, the article said, that the water showed him everything, and then it showed him nothing. The sole survivor's name, accompanied by a grainy, smiling yearbook photo of a much younger, more innocent-looking golden boy. Skyler Quinn. That night, I found an old, half-rotted staff logbook from 2009, shoved behind a loose concrete block in the far corner of the noodles storage room. Hidden beneath a pile of decaying pool filters, many of the entries were mundane. Chlorine levels, pump maintenance schedules. But one entry, dated July 17th, 2009, penned in a spidery, terrified, barely legible hand, read, "Night swim. Bad idea. Deep eddy water went glass clear, like looking into forever. Sky. Saw it. He wouldn't stop looking. Told it. Oh God, he told it everything to make it stop. His dad. The money. What happened to Jess by the old well? Everything. Now he belongs to the eddy. It wears his smile now. It whispers his secrets when the filters run. It waits. It's always waiting for a new ear, a new secret, a new trade. The entry was unsigned, but the sky it referred to. There was no doubt in my mind. Skyler Quinn. He hadn't just survived the Clearwater Entity. He had made a bargain with it. And now it seemed he was looking for someone to take over his end of the deal. And Cassie's warning, watch the noodles. They change, age, suddenly took on a horrifying new meaning. Each noodle wasn't just a number. It was a story, a secret, a soul. And there were 47 of them, patiently waiting. The knowledge gleaned from that rotted logbook, and the old newspaper clippings settled in my gut like a block of ice. Skyler Quinn, the charming, perpetually smiling head lifeguard, the one who so patiently explained the park's bizarre rules, wasn't just an employee. He was a prisoner, a survivor who had traded his deepest, darkest secrets for his life, and in doing so, had become a unwilling, or perhaps eventually willing, custodian of the Clearwater Entity's hunger. And Cassie's final, desperate warning: a lifeguard's chair isn't for saving lives, it's for watching the sacrifices. Don't be next. The water remembers his secret most of all. It all clicked into horrifying focus. Joe hadn't been an accident. Cassie hadn't transferred. They were a prelude, and I was being groomed for the main event. The annual Solstice Midnight Swim was heavily advertised throughout the small sun-baked town. A local tradition, Delaney Moore had explained with a rare, tight smile, that brought in much-needed late-season revenue. Posters depicted laughing families splashing under a romanticized starry sky. The water of the deep eddy, a welcoming cerulean blue. The reality, I now suspected, would be far more sinister. A few days before the event, Skyler sought me out. He found me, predictably, in the damp, whispering confines of the noodle storage room, going through the nightly ritual of counting those 47 silent, accusing yellow sentinels. "Mason," he said, his voice its usual smooth, friendly cadence, that serene smile firmly in place. His eyes flickered almost imperceptibly towards the noodle rack. She's decided you're ready for a bit more responsibility. You're going to be the sole lifeguard on duty for the deep eddy during the midnight swim. He clapped me on the shoulder, a gesture that was meant to be encouraging, but felt like the cold touch of a predator. Big honor. Prime spot. Just keep an eye on things. Make sure everyone enjoys the unique clarity of the water under the stars. My blood ran cold. Sole lifeguard. Deep eddy. Midnight swim. It was a setup, exquisitely orchestrated. This was it. The passing of the guard Cassie had tried to warn me about. The night of the Solstice midnight swim arrived with a suffocating pre-storm stillness. The air was thick, humid, the sky a hazy, starless black. The park was sparsely populated, mostly uneasy-looking locals, who seemed to be there more out of tradition or obligation than actual enjoyment, and a handful of oblivious, thrill-seeking tourists. The usual cheerful cacophony of a water park was muted, replaced by a nervous, expectant hush. I found Skyler near the edge of the deep eddy, just before the event was scheduled to begin. He was staring into the unnaturally clear water, his handsome face illuminated by the underwater pool lights, his expression for once unreadable, almost melancholic. "Skyler," I said, my voice rougher than I intended. "Skyler," I said, my voice rougher than I intended. I held out the rotted logbook, open to the entry from July 2009. I found this in the noodle room. He didn't flinch. He didn't even look at the book. He just continued to stare into the water, his reflection looking back up at him, serene and distorted. "Took you longer than I expected, Mason," he said softly, his voice devoid of its usual charm. "Most of them figure it out, or break, much sooner." "Then?" I pressed. "Joe, Cassie, how many others, Skyler?" He finally turned, and the smile was gone. In its place was a weariness so profound, it seemed to age him by decades. "Enough," he said, his voice flat. "Enough to keep the eddy placid. Enough to keep my end of the bargain. The 2009 Clarity event," I stated, not a question. "You were the sole survivor. You made a deal with whatever is down there, didn't you? To save yourself." He nodded slowly, his gaze distant, haunted. "It was an initiation. The water, it showed me things. Not just my own secrets, Mason. Everyone who had ever touched it, confided in it, drowned in it. It was overwhelming." He shuddered, a genuine human tremor. "It offered me a choice. Join them, become another whispering echo in its depths, or serve, become its guardian, its conduit, ensure the flow of fresh perspectives, new secrets to add to its collection. And you chose to serve," I said, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. "You chose to feed it other people. Joe, Cassie, they were unsuitable," Skyler said, a flicker of something cold and hard in his eyes. Joe listened too eagerly. He almost drowned in other people's truths before he even offered his own. "Cassie, she was too resistant, too analytical. The entity requires a specific resonance. A deep, guarded secret willingly offered up in a moment of ultimate vulnerability. A soul laid bare, his gaze fixed on me, intense, almost pleading now. Like yours, Mason. The things you carry. The things the water has already sensed in you. You're perfect. You want me to take your place," I said, the horrifying truth of Cassie's warning hitting me with full force. "It's not a party. It's an exchange. It's freedom, Mason," Skyler whispered, his voice laced with a desperate, almost manic hope. For me, after all these years, I can finally leave this place. Walk away. Forget. He took a step closer. All you have to do is let the water see you, truly see you. Offer it your deepest, most hidden truth when it turns to glass. Accept the clarity. Embrace it. And I can finally be dry. The park's main floodlights, which had been bathing the deep eddy in a harsh white glare, suddenly dimmed, replaced by the softer, eerie blue glow of the underwater lights. Delaney Moore's voice, amplified and distorted, echoed over the PA system. Welcome, brave swimmers, to the Solstice Shores midnight plunge. The deep eddy awaits. A smattering of nervous applause. A few hesitant figures began to approach the pool's edge. As if on cue, the water in the deep eddy began to churn. Not from any visible pump, but from within, as if something vast and ancient were stirring in its depths. The faint, brackish smell intensified, now mingled with that same cloying, sweet scent of decay and jasmine I'd noticed in room 6 at the Dry Hollow Motel. No, that wasn't right. Wrong nightmare. Here, at Solstice, it was the scent of chlorine, fear, and something else. Something like wet, freshly turned earth. The whispers I'd heard in the noodle storage room rose from the water itself. A chorus of thousands of voices, sighing, confessing, accusing, lamenting. The accumulated secrets of Solstice Shores. The water began to glow with a faint, internal, silvery light. Reflections on its surface shimmered, distorted, showing not the handful of nervous swimmers, but a multitude of other faces, other times. A laughing child from the 1970s, a terrified teenager from the 90s, Joe Carter's wide, drowned eyes, Cassie, transfaced, pale and betrayed. The temperature around the pool plummeted, raising goosebumps on my arms. It's starting, Mason, Skyler breathed, his eyes fixed on the roiling water, a terrifying mixture of fear and ecstatic anticipation on his face. The entity is receptive. Now, Mason, now is the time. Tell it your secret. Set me free. Set me free. Delaney Moore stood at the far edge of the pool, near the lifeguard's high chair, her face a stony, unreadable mask, her eyes fixed on me with a hawk-like, almost hungry intensity. She was not just a manager. She was a priestess at this unholy baptism. The water before me began to clear. Not just clear, but transparent. The glass-like, crystalline horror that had consumed Joe Carter was manifesting, spreading outwards from the center of the deep eddy. A perfect, terrifying lens into the soul. My moment had come. My secret, or my life. And Skyler Quinn, the golden boy lifeguard, the one who wore the park's smile, was waiting, with the patience of a predator, for me to make his desperate bargain my own. The crystalline clarity of the deep eddy spread outwards, a terrifying, silent accusation. The whispers from its depths intensified, a cacophony of shame, regret, and sorrow that seemed to claw at my own carefully buried secrets, trying to drag them to the surface. My deepest fear, the one I hadn't even fully admitted to myself, the gnawing terror of ending up like my father, a man who drowned not in water, but in a sea of debt and broken promises, abandoning his family. It surged within me, raw and exposed, almost irresistible in its urge to be confessed, to be released into that all-consuming glass-like water. Skyler's eyes burned into me, filled with a desperate, almost feral hope. Now, Mason, tell it. Let it see you. It's the only way for both of us. Delaney Moore, from her vantage point by the lifeguard's chair, watched with an unblinking, almost reptilian stillness, her hands clasped before her, as if in prayer, or perhaps in grim anticipation of a familiar ritual. The few remaining swimmers on the pool deck had frozen, their faces pale and horrified, sensing the profound wrongness emanating from the deep eddy. But as I looked into that impossibly clear water, I saw not just the reflection of my own terrified face, but also the ghostly, superimposed images of Joe Carter's wide, drowned eyes and Cassie Tran's face, etched with betrayal. They had trusted, or been tricked, into revealing their truths, and the entity had consumed them, their secrets now just more whispers in its watery prison. I wouldn't be next. No, I said, my voice surprisingly firm, cutting through the chorus of whispers. I won't feed it, Skyler. I won't become another one of its collected secrets. Skyler's face contorted, his serene mask shattering into 1,000 pieces of raw, desperate fury. You fool. Do you know what you're doing? It needs the exchange. The balance must be maintained. If you don't offer it willingly, then what, Skyler? I shot back. It takes you instead? Is that the real rule you've been so desperate to hide? I remembered Cassie's note. The water remembers his secret most of all. The Clearwater Entity denied its expected offering. Its orderly transition of guardianship began to react with a terrifying elemental fury. The glass-like water in the deep eddy seethes, its surface shattering into a million razor-sharp crystalline shards that danced and reformed. Tendrils of water, now glowing with an angry internal crimson light, erupted from the pool, lashing out like sentient whips, seeking purchase, seeking a new secret, a new soul. The reflections on its surface became actively hostile. Distorted faces, my own, Joe's, Cassie's, and countless others I didn't recognize, screaming silent accusations, their watery hands reaching, trying to drag me in. You're breaking the pact, Skyler shrieked, backing away from the enraged pool, his eyes wide with a terror that was no longer feigned. It will take us all. Maybe the pact was broken a long time ago. Skyler, I yelled, my mind racing, latching onto a desperate, insane idea. The rules, they weren't just for me. They were the entity's operating system, its limitations. And the noodles, Cassie's last warning. Watch the noodles. They change. There was a stack of the accursed 47 yellow pool noodles piled near the edge of the deep eddy, ready for the midnight swim. If each one represented a claimed secret, a bound soul. What if? I lunged for the stack, grabbing an armful of the faded, strangely cold foam. You want secrets, entity, I roared, turning to face the roiling, furious water. You want to maintain your collection? And then, with all my strength, I began to hurl the pool noodles, one by one, directly into the heart of the enraged deep eddy. Here are your secrets back, 47 of them. Take them, choke on them. The effect was instantaneous and utterly unexpected. Each time a yellow noodle hit the thrashing glass-like surface of the water, it didn't float. It sank, as if weighted with lead, dissolving into a plume of oily black smoke on contact with the entity's essence. And with each dissolving noodle, a distinct human scream, a chorus of them, tore through the night air, followed by a momentary faltering in the entity's fury. The lashing tendrils of water recoiled. The hostile reflections flickered. No! Skyler screamed, his face a mask of horrified understanding. The anchors! You're releasing the anchors. You'll unbind it. Delaney Moore, her face finally cracking into an expression of pure, unadulterated terror, tried to lunge towards me, to stop me. The covenant. You'll break the original covenant. But it was too late. I kept throwing them. 30, 35, 40. Each noodle a dissolving shriek, a weakening of the entity's hold. The water in the deep eddy was now a maelstrom of black smoke, crimson light, and screaming, fading specters. As I threw the 47th and final noodle, the one that had felt heavier, colder, the one that had wept salt water, and smelled of Cassie's fear into the vortex. The reaction was cataclysmic. The deep eddy didn't just erupt. It imploded. The water, the light, the very air around it seemed to be sucked downwards into a screaming abyssal maw that opened in the pool center. Skyler Quinn, caught too close, was dragged in, his own screams swallowed by the vortex, his handsome face contorting in a final agonizing realization of his own ultimate secret being laid bare and consumed. Delaney Moore was thrown back by the force, her body hitting the concrete with a sickening thud, her eyes wide and vacant. And then, with a sound like 1,000 glass panes shattering simultaneously, the vortex collapsed. The water in the deep eddy, for a single, terrifying moment, became a perfect, flawless black mirror, reflecting nothing but the starless, empty sky. Then, slowly, it began to refill with ordinary, murky, chlorinated water, the kind you'd find in any overused public pool. The whispers were gone. The unnatural clarity was gone. The oppressive, sentient presence that had haunted Solstice Shores was silent. The aftermath was a scene of chaotic devastation. The deep eddy was now just a pool, albeit one filled with churning, debris-laden water. Skyler Quinn was gone, vanished as completely as Joe and Cassie. Delaney Moore lay unconscious by the poolside, a thin trickle of blood, or perhaps dark, brackish water, seeping from her ear. The few remaining park guests and terrified staff members were babbling incoherently, their faces pale with shock. The official story, after the emergency services had come and gone, and after days of hushed, closed-door investigations by a very unnerved local sheriff and some tight-lipped men in dark suits who seemed to appear out of nowhere, was a freak geological event. Haiti, a small, localized sinkhole, had apparently opened beneath the deep eddy, causing a temporary aquifer pressure surge that resulted in the tragic, but they emphasized, entirely accidental, drowning of head lifeguard Skyler Quinn and the unfortunate disappearance of a few other seasonal employees, presumed to have fled in panic. Delaney Moore, it was reported, had suffered a severe concussion and subsequent stress-induced amnesia, with no clear recollection of the night's events. Solstice Shores Water Park was closed indefinitely, citing urgent structural and water quality assessments. The gates were locked, the colorful slides left to bleach and crack under the relentless Texas sun. I gave my statement, a heavily edited, carefully sanitized version of events that omitted the glass water, the whispering noodles, and the soul-stealing entity. They looked at me like I was crazy anyway. But my story, mundane as I tried to make it, was less unbelievable than the impossible truth. I got my final paycheck, which was surprisingly generous, almost like hush money, and I left that remote Texas town, putting as much distance between myself and Solstice Shores as my sputtering Civic could manage. I made it to my sophomore year. I even declared a major, folklore and mythology, much to my parents' confusion. I couldn't explain why. I just knew I needed to understand more about the old stories, the forgotten pacts, the things that lurk just beneath the surface of our mundane reality. But I carry Solstice Shores with me. It's a cold spot in my memory, a lingering taste of chlorine and fear. I can't go near a public pool anymore without feeling a prickle of unease, without my eyes instinctively scanning the water for that telltale, impossible clarity. The number 47 will forever hold a chilling significance. And sometimes when I'm near a large body of water, especially at night, I can still hear them, faint, distant whispers, like secrets trying to find a new ear, a new confidant. A few weeks ago, I was walking along a beach on the Gulf Coast, the water dark and choppy under a moonless ski. I found a faded, battered yellow pool noodle washed up on the sand, half buried in seaweed. There was nothing remarkable about it, Just another piece of forgotten summer detritus. But as I reached down to pick it up, a wave washed over it, and for a fleeting, heart-stopping instant, the water around the noodle turned perfectly, terrifyingly transparent, like a shard of purest glass. And in that crystalline clarity, just for a second before it clouded over again, I saw a reflection. Not my own, but the pale, serene, smiling face of Skyler Quinn. His eyes fixed on me with a look of infinite, sorrowful patience, as if he were merely waiting for the tide to turn, for the rules to reassert themselves, for the next secret to be offered. I backed away from the water. Some shores, I realized, are never truly left behind, and some currents, once entered, flow on forever, carrying their drowned secrets towards an unsuspecting, thirsty world. The Solstice Shores may be closed, but the entity just found a much larger pool to play in, and I have a sickening feeling. I know who it will be looking for to count the noodles.